We good? Welcome. Drink with James, episode 89. As you can tell, I'm not on a plane. I'm back in the conference room. I am wearing a sweater with a face on it. See that? Yep. I was walking down the street in another snowstorm. It's snowing outside, by the way. I was walking down the street. I see this woman. She's got a camel coat on with a face on the back. And I stopped her and I said, you know, where did you get that coat? And she said, oh, it's collaboration with an artist, I think it's Jean Julien, who does all these like little faces and stuff. So I found the clothes on a Korean e-commerce site and I ordered this sweater, and Grace has the jacket. Maybe Tim will put an Instagram up or something. But Grace has a ridiculous jacket with a face on the back. Anyway, this stuff is great. You should check it out. Again, the only place I've been able to see it is some random Korean e-com site, which maybe I'll send a link to Tim. But I'm usually not one for incorporating humor into my clothing because I take myself incredibly seriously and I take my clothes seriously. But it was snowing today and I have worked for like 19 days in a row and I'm tired. And so this is what you get, you know. I did get a haircut. Oh, actually, super depressing. I'm getting a haircut and I'm chatting to my guy I've been going to for years, and I had ordered something for him. It doesn't matter, you don't need to know the specifics. He's like, I hope it gets here before I leave. I was like, what, you going on a trip? He's like, no, I'm moving to Washington in May. And I was just like, motherfucker. Like, once you find somebody that can cut your hair and you like them and then they leave, it's such a pain in the ass because you have to like, one, I don't really like talking to my barber. We kind of just like, we just don't really speak, and it's just like, we know each other well enough that that's cool. Like, nobody feels weird. So it's not like sitting down. Like, I was asking him yesterday, like, I would love if he could just like strap my head to the chair and I could go to sleep, because I find the whole hair cutting thing very cathartic, and it makes me want to fall asleep. Anyway, now I gotta find a new guy. He's probably gonna screw it up and he's gonna want to talk to me. It's a whole disaster. But men in New York City, if you have any barbers that you really like, let me know. What else is going on? I went on a little mini rant today on Instagram that every single feed I've been seeing looks exactly like Tezza's. So like, you know, she does a lot of oranges, a lot of saturation, and then she will always kind of wear something red or have something red in the photo. And I've literally seen 20 feeds in the last week that are that exact same thing. And I just cannot stress enough that this is a terrible fucking idea and that you should find your own thing that you're good at and do it. Yes, Tezza is growing like crazy. She's gained 50,000 followers in the last month. She's got 5.3% engagement, which is, you know, over 5 times the average of people that are at her following level. But like, this is her thing. She does it really well. And so like, everyone else just does a shittier version of what she's doing. And when you look at it, you just kind of roll your eyes and you're like, oh cool, you're like copying what she's doing. I can speak from like our perspective. We probably would never work with someone that is like a direct ripoff of somebody doing it better. So always good to experiment, good to test, good to like, you know, see, can you edit your photos like her? Can you take a couple photos like her? I would even hat tip it if you did it, you know, trying out like, this is like my, you know, channeling Tezza today. Like, I think that is worth doing just to learn and see what's working. But don't change your whole feed to what somebody else is doing. Come up with some shit yourself. It's not that hard, I promise. So, we're gonna move on. Another question a lot of people have been asking, which they will not ask in the next week or two, is what do I think of Vero? First, I don't think of it very often. Second, you know, I think as an influencer, you should look at new platforms. You should try things out. That is certainly worthwhile. Will Vero take over Instagram? I mean, no. I'll just say it. No, there's no fucking way it's going to. Instagram will not always be as popular as Instagram is today, right? We are probably reaching a pinnacle of Instagram's popularity in pop culture, its influence, all of that. Like, we are probably near the top of as influential as Instagram is going to be. Hold on. Whatever knocks Instagram off the mountaintop, whatever takes its place, will not look or feel anything like Instagram. It will be completely new. It will take years to get the kind of traction that brands start wanting to work within it. I mean, I use Snapchat. Snapchat's the closest thing that was going to take Instagram down before they launched Insta Stories. Snapchat was eating into Instagram's traffic. They were growing a lot faster than Instagram. They were doing all these things right. When Snapchat started, if you remember, it was a messaging app. It was people said it was a sexting app. Nobody took it seriously. And then all of a sudden it was a thing, and it started to get popular. It took years before brands started paying attention to people that had Snapchat followings and started to want to work on those platforms. So somebody coming out being like, hey, it's Instagram, but the feed is chronological, it's never going to fucking work. Instagram is not interesting because of its features. It is only interesting because of the community that is there. There's 800 million people on Instagram. To fight that, you're gonna have to create something that is so addictive and so different that people open up Instagram and say, this feels old. This no longer feels like the way I want to consume content, which is exactly what Snapchat was. Like that instant video that was disappearing after a day that felt fresh and interesting, and it was a whole new way to create content. And at the core of these platforms, they're a way for people to stay in touch with their friends and family and people that they care about. It's not a way to like give book recommendations or movie recommendations or restaurant recommendations or whatever the fuck Vero says it's gonna do. That is not what Instagram is interesting for. Like, the reason people like it is because the people that they care about are on that platform creating content, and they're learning about them. So another just example as a comp, if you're in a fight with somebody about this, have a think about this. I was talking to a friend that works at TBS this weekend, and we were talking about Netflix and all this stuff and just how different the media is and how different that world is. And I was like, could you imagine being in a conference room with Warner Brothers, 10, 15 years ago, right when Netflix started, and you walk in and you say, hey, just so you guys know, Netflix is going to create better original content than you're creating. They're going to create more of it, and they're going to fucking eat your lunch, and they're going to be a more valuable company than you in 10 or 15 years. That, you would have been laughed out of that conference room. Netflix was a place to rent DVDs online, and now it's the most innovative content creation company in the world. That's not a linear thing. The same thing will happen with a platform. It'll start out looking and feeling like one thing, and then all of a sudden it'll replace Instagram, and it'll feel very natural. But it's not going to be something like Vero. It's not going to be something that is released in response to Instagram and to some of the pain points that you're feeling, because for somebody to switch, it just has to be fundamentally different. So that's a long way of saying I wouldn't worry too much about Vero. It's not going to be around for very long, I think. I could be wrong, but I'm probably not. So that's my piece on that. Putting together a pitch or proposal to be a brand ambassador for a company I've worked with in the past. How should I structure the pitch, given they've never had a brand ambassador, given I've never been one? So, brand ambassador is interesting, right? Like that is predicated on the assumption that they're going to be working with you on a number of sponsored posts across the entirety of a year. I try and think about these things and relate them to my own life. When you sign up for something and it says, do you want to pay $10 a month, or do you want to pay $100 for the year? If you're 100% sure you're going to continue to be a customer every month, then it makes sense for you to do the $100 a month, right? If you can afford it, You save 20 bucks, why not? You're gonna pay for it anyway. So over time, you're getting savings. The only reason you wouldn't do that is one, if you didn't have the money, or two, if you didn't know you were gonna use it for the rest of the year. It would be really fucking annoying to pay for something, 6 months later be like, I don't use this anymore, right? Same thing with the brand ambassador. You have to think that like these brands can just pay for one-off sponsored posts with you. So they have to like you so much, and they have to be so sure that they wanna work with you, that they are willing to make the investment upfront for the entirety of a year. It's pretty rare. It's pretty rare for a brand to find somebody like that they know 100% that they want to work with for the year. If you can bridge that gap, if you have a brand that is like, I am interested in this, or you think that they will be interested in it, then you have to give them economic incentive to do so. You have to give them economies of scales. You have to give them a lot better deal. Because again, if you're not saying, hey, it's 30% cheaper to do this, you know, to pay up front, then again, they have absolutely no incentive. So, you know, try and make it really make a lot of sense for them. Something I would consider doing as well is take a look at your growth rate. Let's say it's, you know, 7% or something. Well, 10% just because math is hard for me, okay? Say you're at 100K, you go 10% a month, 10,000 followers a month, you know, 10, then 12, on and on and on. So what you can do is say, okay, I'm at 100,000 followers now, but by the end of the year, if you look at my growth rate, if that continues, I want to be at 150,000 at the end of the year. So not only am I giving you a big discount on my prices today, but given the growth that I'm going to experience, that discount is actually even bigger, because by the end of the year, if I'm charging $1,000 for a sponsored post today, I think I'm going to be charging $1,800 by the end of the year. So if I'm selling you 12 posts and I'm selling them at $500 because you're buying them in mass, then you're not just saving 50%. By the end of the year, you're saving, you know, 70% or something. So important to lay out the economics, important to tell them all the extra stuff that they're going to get. Also, they're going to get exclusivity if you're an ambassador, or like, if not exclusivity, at least they'll get that idea that like the followers will see it over and over and over again. So we're seeing that work more and more. And I think letting the brand know that you're going to be able to tell that authentic story, that you're going to be able to loop in and fold that brand into your feed, into what you're talking about over time, is really important. Just nuts and bolts, like kind of detail stuff that I think could be interesting. One, I would say that like give them the chance at the beginning of the month to tell you what their focus is currently. So if it's a clothing company, let them in October say, I want you to do a sweater story. In November, let them say, I want you to talk about Black Friday. In December, I want to talk about last minute gifts. So let them kind of buy, you know, these things in bulk and then use them as they want throughout the year. You might also push them to do no approvals, just so that you can fold it into your life in a way that is really authentic and makes sense. It'll make it a lot easier on you, it'll make it a lot easier on the brand. We're doing a lot more no approval campaigns, and if they're not happy, you just kind of do a make good post on that. And lastly, I would say, if the brand doesn't have a huge amount of money, try and sell them a bunch of posts and do non-dedicated. So, you know, you're tagging them, you're mentioning them in the post, but you're also mentioning other brands. That can be, you know, great for the brand because they're still getting out there, but can be a lot more affordable for them because you can't really charge as much for a non-dedicated post. I'd say you could charge 25% of your normal fee for a non-dedicated post that still hit their key messaging. So, a few ways to think about it. Long-term brand ambassadors, like that stuff is perfect. I think that is, in a lot of ways, the absolute ideal for influencer marketing, that like these products should be integrated into the life, and it should be something that people know that you're a big fan of. So I appreciate you pushing brands to try and do more of that. Make sure you make it worth their while, and make sure you've kind of validated it yourself enough to the brand to where they know, I do want 12 posts from this person. I know they're going to be able to deliver the value there, because there's so many influencers now, they could also work with 12 different influencers on those posts just as easily. So make it worth their while. Last, can we be more transparent on what brands are looking for in terms of, well, like, can I provide some transparency on what brands are looking for in terms of kind of what makes a campaign successful? This is something that we've been thinking about a lot at Fohr recently, is pushing brands and influencers to define success. We just sent an email out recently telling our brand partners and just brand contacts that on a given campaign they should pick what we call a keystone KPI. So if you don't know what a KPI is, this is something that your clients live and die by. It's a key performance indicator. It's a way to track how well things are doing. A key performance indicator, KPI, for a campaign could be growing the brand's Instagram following, it could be sales, it could be brand awareness, it could be impressions, it could be content, it could be any number of things. Definitely before you do a campaign with a brand, ask them, what does success look like for you? What KPIs are you tracking? What is the most important thing that you need out of this campaign? I think about it in a way of like, if I was an influencer talking to the brand, I would say, what do you want my followers to know or do at the end of this campaign? Do you want them to know the story of this sweater, that this is an Instagram artist who's got 800,000 followers and he does these very fun doodles and he now has a clothing line? Or do you want to tell the story of just like, this is a funny piece of clothing, it doesn't matter who made it, and you want to drive to the e-com site that's selling it and tell people that they can buy it and it's pretty affordable, it's like a $60 sweater. Two very different stories, two very different ways that you would tell that story. It's really important for you as an influencer, and it is only going to get more important, and we have talked about this before, to take responsibility for the success of the campaigns that you work on. Your job as an influencer when you do a sponsored post is not to do the sponsored post, it is not to post it on time, it's not to follow the brief, it is to help that brand reach whatever set of goals they have. That's it, right? And so I saw a post the other day, I had a brand person email me and they said, hey, I paid this influencer $750 for a post. She did it, it got a lot of engagement. She barely mentioned the product in the post. It was like the second sentence of the post was about the product, but it just said wearing and then said the brand. And then a bunch of people in the comments were asking questions about the piece of clothing and the influencer didn't answer any of them. And she's like, I just feel like I wasted my money. And this is a small business owner. This is not some big corporation. And it was $750, and that's a lot of money. I don't spend $750 myself on much. Even at Fohr, we're getting bigger and bigger, but like, if Tim had a marketing expense that was $750, I'd want to make sure that we got something out of that. And she's like, I feel dumb. I feel like I did something wrong. And certainly she could have briefed that influencer better, but that influencer did not try at all to make that campaign successful. And I really want you to think about it, especially if you're getting paid, and think about that as your money. If you were paying somebody to promote your Instagram and you paid them $50 or $500 or $5,000 or $10,000 to do that, what would your expectation be? What would success look like for you in that post? And do that and more. But you can't be successful in a campaign if you don't understand the way the brand defines success. So push them on that and ask them to tell you how they're defining success so that you can, create content that drives towards those KPIs. I think that's it. That one felt like it was full of a lot of good information. Sometimes I finish these and I'm like, that was terrible. That one felt good. Keep asking those questions. We've got something new and exciting coming out for you in the middle of this week that I'm sure you'll be hearing about, but I can't talk about yet. But your minds are gonna be blown to pieces, I think. So as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for sending whiskey, those of you who do. And we'll see you next week.